Things have gone and grown over the years. We've become spoiled with the services we've been provided. But that all happened under a rising economy and home values that were artificially raised. Now that everything is sunk down to where it was years and years ago, the belt has to be tightened and the services have to be paid out at the same level as what's taken in. In other words, we overgrew our economy, and a good portion of that happened in government. And one final statement. As much as we're fretting over what's going on with the town of Goshen, it's a small portion of the overall cost of operating Goshen. We're sitting with a $59 million school budget and a school contract that's going to be coming up in January, and you can bet your butt that the teachers aren't going to say, waive our raises for the next 3 years. They'll be coming at us with raises there. The only thing that's propping them up today is Obama funds that kept teachers in jobs over the course of the year. We are heading for much bigger and more difficult times, not just in the town of Goshen, in all of the New York State. We have a serious financial problem here, and a lot of it has to do with how we've spent and grown our government. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are all trying to hold it. I hope that the police officers realize that $150,000 asking for a $150,000 increase was not a cut in your budget, but just a remaining of the status quo of where we were. The fact that you went from $600,000 to $1.5 million says an awful lot about how this government has been supportive of the police agency itself. And I guess that I don't think you're exaggerating about what's going to happen in 2011 either. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments, sir?
Good evening, Board. Good evening, Mr. Supervisor. My name is Keith Rosario. I'm a resident of this town. I'm proud to call myself a resident of the town of Goshen. By no means am I in any position to call our taxes or call my standard of living comfortable in any way. Taxes are difficult for every one of us. There's no doubt that we're under financial constraints right now, personally tightening our belts. But some of us may be in the field of working with foreclosures on a daily basis, but some of us may be in the field of law enforcement, okay? I am not a police officer in this town. I am a police officer in a different county. And I can tell you from the law enforcement standpoint, even the consideration of a reduction of service is a travesty. I look at the police budget in this town, and it's remarkably lower than budgets in other towns in this county, as well as on the state and national level. The fact of the matter is that we are in trying times, and with those trying times comes a rise of crime. It comes a rise in this day and age. We see it on a daily basis now, the threats of terrorism, the threats of dangers in our school and everything else. I heard before that we have 2 police officers on the road on a regular basis, plus a sergeant, okay? These are not benefits, okay? These are not, this is absolute minimum that the police department in this town is running with. I know DCJS has done a study in this town, and I guarantee you the numbers that DCJS is giving, or Department of Criminal Justice Services, which is the agency that does the evaluations on the state level and looks into the crime rates and makes the recommendations for the number of officers on the road. I can guarantee you that the numbers are much, much higher than this town currently puts out. I'm glad to hear that there's not going to be a cutback on the midnight, because the fact of the matter is that to even consider a reduction of service on midnight would absolutely put the citizens of this town at risk. As it is now, for 2 officers to cover the entire town on any tour, and 2 officers and a sergeant, excuse me?
2 patrols.
Yes, 2 patrol officers and a sergeant, or two patrol officers by themselves to cover, is putting the, just running those numbers alone is a risk to the residents of this town. Okay? The fact of the matter is that it puts the officers themselves at risk. The officers themselves, if they're out with the traffic stop, you must have 2 officers, one to back you up, because things can change in an instant. All right, my understanding is that you have patrol vehicles that have over 200,000 miles on them that these officers are utilizing on the road. And you're talking about purchasing new vehicles for the highway department, or kudos for the highway department for purchasing used vehicles, or any of the other departments in this town. The fact of the matter is they should be looking at purchasing used vehicles. For the number 1 cause of death for police officers is motor vehicle accidents, not shootings. The fact of the matter is, for us to even be asking police officers to be responding to calls with over 200,000 miles on a vehicle is an absolute travesty, okay? And it does put the town at risk, and the town board, for that matter, should be seriously concerned about the liability of cutting back on classes, training, and as well as the vehicles and equipment that's provided for the law enforcement officers, okay? I'm not one to want to see a raise of taxes in any way, shape, or form. But the fact of the matter is, law enforcement and the protection that we provide to our citizens is not the area that we should be looking at cutbacks. The fact of the matter is, when you were looking at the 2001 numbers versus the 2010 budget, if you look at the national level, RISE has astronomically climbed as a result. If you look at gang violence, the gangs in the suburbs, and the continuing increase of the criminal behavior in these areas, it puts us at risk. I'm living in this town. I've purchased a house in this town because of the safety, because of the fact that this is a place that I want to raise my children. Not other communities such as Middletown and all. I know what the crime rates are like there. I know what the safety is like there. I'm not about to raise my family there. That's why I came to Goshen. And I implore you, be aware for this budget and all the future budgets, the fact of the matter is law enforcement services do increase, and especially when finances become more difficult. And we need to be aware of that, and we need to go and account for that. So if we need to find areas to cut, it should not be for the law enforcement. It should be in other areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Quite welcome. Thank you very much for your input. Anyone else?
I have a couple of questions that I was hoping the board could clarify, and perhaps this speaks to what Mr. Capella said earlier about...
Could you state your name and where you live, your address, please?
I'm sorry, yeah. My name is Gertrude Zeiferblatt, and my dad lives up on Ridge Road. He's 87 years old and couldn't be with us tonight.
Okay.
There were a couple of comments that were written in the Chronicle last week that to me seemed a little bit vague, and now I'm confused. I thought I understood, but now hearing some of the things the board said, I'm not really understanding them. One of the comments said that this gives the impression that we, the town, are doing the cuts. We didn't make any cuts. That confuses me a little bit. We speak about the $150,000 that was cut, but are you saying that the board didn't issue a mandate that
the 150, we asked the chief, professional policeman, we need $150,000 out of the budget. You determine how to do it, and we said with 2 or 3 caveats. Number 1, it cannot put the officers in jeopardy. Number 2, it cannot put the public in jeopardy. Okay? And that's the way it was presented to him. He worked through a couple of iterations of that before he gave us the iteration, the final one.
So the board did order $150,000
That's correct.
cut?
Yes.
No increase.
No, please, Mr. King, you're the Commissioner of Finance.